Welcome to the Solid Verbal.
The Solid Verbal.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
I've heard so many players say, well, I want to be happy. You want to be happy for a day? Eat a steak.
It's that woo-woo!
And now, Dan and Ty.
Welcome back to the Solid Verbal, boys and girls. My name is Ty Hildenbrandt, joining me as always over there in New York City. My man, the one and only Dan Rubenstein. Sir, how are you?
Ty, when was the last time you did drugs? I ask because after this show, people are going to want to test you because you are going to perform at such a high level. They're going to say, what is up with Ty Hildenbrandt?
I feel shot out of a cannon tonight, Dan.
Is that true?
I do. We've got a lot to get through.
Before we get through it, can I turn off the heater that my wife left on in this apartment?
No, we need to get you comfortable. We need to have you in rhythm because we've got a lot to get through tonight. It was National Signing Day.
Yes.
Today, we will certainly make reference to what transpired on signing day. This is not a signing day show, though. Typically what we find, and we've been doing the show for, God, I lost count how many years. Well, what we do is we bring in Brandon or somebody and we talk about the news of the day. And inevitably, there's always a handful of kids who delay their commitment. Mm-hmm. And the news is never really current because there is more of the story left to tell. We're going to put off that show by a week or two. Talk about it in a little bit.
Let's do it next week. We'll do it next week. We will take that long view.
We'll focus on National Signing Day. We'll give you the 30,000-foot view. We'll bring in a knowledgeable guest to focus just primarily on that. But we've also got some other news that we want to talk about. And we've got just a bunch of questions that have been building up, things that you and I think, need to work out between each other. Like, let's just make this an organic show. We can answer questions, talk about college football, a casual dress Wednesday here on The Verbal.
Yeah, we have a lot of questions. We've got a fun little personal news story that we can touch on probably tail end of the show. And then just have fun with each other, Ty, because that's what this show is all about. It's just interpersonal relationships. Yeah. I've been listening to a lot of Fat Joe for reasons I'll explain later, perhaps. But it's about us. It's about trust.
That's right.
What's love? It's what it is. Before we get there, quickly, some news, including signing day.
We got to play the sound if it's news, Dan.
Yeah.
I don't know how breaking it is, but it's breaking news.
USC has an offensive coordinator.
Yay!
That's something.
There we go.
This because we're recording once a week. This is old news. This is old news. Graham Harrell, who has been at North Texas helping to run that offense, has come in the stead of Cliff Kingsbury, who moved on to the Arizona Cardinals. So USC at least has an offensive coordinator. We really don't know the full shape of what USC is going to look like next year, both player-wise, coaching-wise, whatever. A lot can always change with that program.
God. Can I ask a question?
Please.
I'm guessing you saw the news about the big acquisition in the podcasting arena with Spotify and Gimlet and Anchor.
Yeah. I think that's local to me. Gimlet's in Brooklyn, right?
For sure. A lot of podcast nerdery going on. You can read about it. But Spotify made a giant acquisition to the tune of $200 and some million to become more prominently part of the whole podcast thing.
We'll do it for $150, $150 million. No questions
What is
asked.
the price tag? What is the dollar amount we could fetch if we went around and pitched an oral history of the Cliff Kingsbury era at USC?
Oh, like we did, like Roger Bennett did with the U.S. national team?
That's right.
Like that limited run special type thing?
That's right. It'll be a one-episode miniseries on Cliff Kingsbury's time at USC. How many hundreds of dollars could we get for that?
We could get as many dollars as he spent days in that job. I say we could get a premium lunch. We could afford a premium lunch between us.
Dan's favorite taco joint in L.A. Okay.
Yes.
What else do we got?
Okay, so Pep Hamilton is out at Michigan, which sort of seemed like writing was on the wall. This is all the coaching stuff. After Josh Gaddis was hired, Ben McDaniels was promoted, I think, to quarterbacks coach. That's Josh McDaniels' brother, who was an analyst at Michigan. And so there's a little movement on the offensive coordinator front. And I think signing day obviously has taken the biggest hold in terms of attention in the college football world. And to nobody's surprise, it's Alabama 1, Georgia 2, Texas 3, Texas A&M 4, which is a bit of a surprise. But Jimbo Fisher, very, very good recruiter. And Oklahoma with, I don't know if this is their best class ever, It seems like it could be, but they're at number 5, I believe, at the time of this recording. Oregon had a very strong class. Washington finished strong. Tennessee finished strong. Georgia had a big flip. Florida finished very strong. We mentioned Michigan. They finished for the first time. I would presume in some time with Urban Meyer at Ohio State for as long as he was. They finished with the top class in the Big Ten with Penn State and then Ohio State following them. Also notable, USC, generally top 5-ish. They're at number 17 at the time we're doing this. Nebraska, number 19.
Turning up that heat on Clay Helton, man.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so much uncertainty, and we'll get to more USC stuff later. But Nebraska at number 19, I think, is impressive, all things considered. Arkansas, who had a woeful year at 22 because, jobs are up for grabs when you don't win a game in conference.
Sure, it's all on the table.
It's all on the table. Florida State, a pretty good class, a great corner, DB class, whatever, but 0 high school quarterbacks for the second consecutive year, leaving how many total scholarship quarterbacks eligible at this time to play in 2019? James Blackman.
Yeah, okay.
That would be the big one because DeAndre Francois was dismissed this past week. So Florida State in a bit of a jam there.
Going all Wildcat in 2019.
A lot of Cam Akers, folks.
Yeah.
The Wild Cam. So a lot of stories. I mean, Tennessee finished very strong. They had a guy from California, a linebacker, with the rare double apostrophe. It's Henry To'oto'o, I think is his name.
We're going to have fun with that one.
Yeah, so he's going to Tennessee, and they sign a very large man, a very good offensive line class for Tennessee. So Jeremy Pruitt doing at least big things on the recruiting trail there. And I saw Virginia signed a German quarterback.
Did you see that Miami signed a 24-year-old tatted up punter from Australia?
Let's do this. I'm so excited. I'm ready for that. Oregon State signed a dude with a giant mullet, like a giant red-headed mullet guy. Washington finished... Guy. Yeah, giant redheaded mullet guy. Washington finished very, very strong in an impressive fashion. Texas held on to a couple of big dudes. So nothing crazy as it relates to classes that we've seen these past few years, but it's sort of, we're spreading the signing day excitement out. It's spread kind of thin with the early signing period in mid to late December, and then the first Wednesday in February. So we're going to touch on all of it. We mentioned the early stuff when it happened, but we'll touch on all of it next week, presumably, unless he's too good for us, Brandon Huffman from now 24/7 Sports.
Yeah, and the other component of recruiting, obviously we've got the early signing period, we've got the normal signing period, I'll call it, that we're all used to.
Yes.
But there's this transfer portal business that sort of fills in the gaps. That almost goes on year round, but it seems that's gained more prominence now as, well, we could talk more about that. I saw we got some questions coming in regarding the transfer portal and what it means to the state of college football. I feel like we've addressed that in the past, but these are a little bit more specific, so we can talk about all that and more. Anything else in the way of news, Dan? Because we've got a bunch of questions here that I know you and I both want to address.
I don't think so. I mean, Greg Schiano is going to be the defensive coordinator for the Patriots. Obviously, Ryan Day hires Greg Madison to be the new defensive coordinator for Ohio State, and that left Greg Schiano looking for a job. And he has his, very clear connections to pro football, so that sort of makes sense. I think the Patriots lost their defensive coordinator to the Dolphins.
He was a linebacker coach, maybe, and he
was a co-DC. Please, I barely know college football, let alone stuff in the NFL. I did do, by the way. I don't know if you have it at the ready. I sort of watched the Super Bowl. What a drive chart, Ty.
Oh no!
What a drive chart. I posted it on the Twitter feed. I recorded a special.
Yeah, go out to the Twitter.
Yeah.
And look at the drive chart. That would have been an epic drive chart on this show. Not just one team, really the entire game. If you went into that game looking for a pyrotechnic offensive display, what you got was really low-rung SEC defensive football.
Yeah, it was...
not even Alabama LSU back in the day. Yeah. This was just bad defensive-minded football is what it amounted to.
I'm not going to sit here and say I don't enjoy all things Wade Phillips. I don't know if you saw his cowboy hat. I can appreciate all things son of bum. I'm not going to stand taller than that. But It was a rough watch at times. I'm not an NFL guy at all. I probably watched 2 or 3 NFL games this year, and so that was one of them and didn't really do much for me. So the other thing, by the way, before we get way too far down an NFL path, there are plenty of NFL podcasts for you to listen to. Listen to the Bill Barnwell show. Go do it.
Our good Bill. Okay.
We should mention, did you see the Bryles stuff?
Yeah.
So Art Bryles supposedly had a conversation with Jay Hopson, the Southern Miss head coach, about becoming their next offensive coordinator. And he had that conversation without the school's administration knowing. And if you're going to have an Art Bryles conversation, you live in the corporate world somewhat, Ty. What would be loop them in?
Yeah.
Can we set up a conference call here?
Loop me in. Yeah. Can we circle back? Sure.
Can we circle back? Can we touch base? Can we have a chat? Quick buzz. There was none of that. And that is not the way to go about business when hiring or potentially hiring somebody like Art Bryles. The school issued a statement saying he is not in consideration. We are not going to be in the business of Art Bryles after everything that happened at Baylor and all of his involvement with what happened at Baylor.
Yeah,
and
right.
Jay Hopson,
I saw you defended it then, right?
He then went out and said, listen, like a not great person. And he said, we're here for second chances, and he's a man of the Bible and blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
Nope. Can't do it.
Well,
so that's what happened.
We put out a call across all the channels, Twitter, Facebook. Did we put it on Instagram? I don't think we put it on Instagram.
Not the
gram. We got questions on the gram.
We didn't do the gram. Did we get questions on the gram?
We had some that were sent in to us as well.
Wow. Yeah. I didn't even check. People are trying all methods to get through to us to have their questions answered. Some good ones out on Reddit that we're going to address. Some that came in through plain old-fashioned email, solidverbal@gmail.com. We try to do these shows about once a week during the off season. Now that we're in February, we're squarely in the off season. We've had a chance to decompress a bit from the college football regular season. We are still, of course, going through our conference autopsy rulings. Yes.
We've got 2 of those out already. There will be more yet to come, in addition to all the other cool stuff that we've got planned this offseason. It's going to be a big offseason for the Solid Verbal, but we feel like we can't go forward and talk more about specific college football topics without doing a bit of a retrospective and first answering questions from the Verballerhood at large. So, Dan, if we could.
Congratulations, Skippy. You've got mail.
On the Solid Verbal.
As often as we can, we'd like to pay homage. Where do we want to start here, Dan?
You know what? Let's start big picture. I enjoyed this question, not because I think about it all too often, but because I think it's an interesting talking point with where we are as a sport, or at least covering a sport or fans of the sport. This comes to us, I assume, from Reddit, because it comes to us from Reddit Lad789.
Okay, that's probably a Reddit user, yeah.
Looking at the correlation between national championships, 11-win seasons, and recruiting class rankings, do you guys think that there will ever be a movement to instill parity in college football? I personally think the future is pretty bleak for college football, as the incredible amount of money being made is going to force a terraforming.
Whoa,
great word.
Big word.
Formation of land or earth of sorts of the current system into something even more corporate that will allow the elite high school players to be more easily funneled into blue blood programs. I imagine that at some point the deals with the visual services, TV and streaming, will become so lucrative that it will lead to a super conference or super conferences made of the most revenue rich programs.
Would you say a Pangea, if we're going to throw out 10-cent words? A Pangea?
Sure. I would love
college football. So here's his point is on the money for sure.
Right. It's basically asking, are we going to reach a point where it is just the haves and it's going to become an even more binary sport?
So that's the thing. Are we ever going to see parity within the current format of college football? The answer is most likely no. Could we see parity within some super conference if we keep going the way we're going? That could probably be worked out to some degree. I think that's the more likely scenario at this point. Doesn't happen 2 years from now. May not even happen 10 years from now. But I think, to his point, that's where we're headed. We're headed down a path where we form a super conference 25 years in the future, and it is truly haves and have-nots?
Yes and no. So there is part of me that looks at college football and says this is not a sport that is meant to have equality. And very few sports are in the way that they're set up. And there's a ton of free agent and player agency in the NBA. You would know about the Premier League or the EPL, whatever it is, better than I, but it appears that especially overseas in soccer, that the halves are separated.
There is no parity. There is no parity whatsoever.
So there's no parity there. There's a luxury tax in baseball. I couldn't even begin to speak to how hockey is ruled, but I know that there's a salary cap there, correct?
Yes, there's a salary cap.
So what I would say as it relates to college football is parity exists in that all of the biggest schools have a similar amount of money to throw around. So hypothetically, we could have a super conference and there are 22 teams and it's USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington, Texas, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Alabama, LSU, et cetera, because they're all playing on relatively even playing fields in how much they spend, what their facilities look like, what they've been able to grow their brands into. So there is that element, what he's mentioning, that terraforming.
Yeah.
But I imagine because of how college football is structured and because it's recruiting and because there are different TV deals and different conferences and different amounts of talent in different parts of the country, this was never meant to be a sport that was going to be evened out. And so I think it's an accept what we have and move forward and find the pockets that you enjoy rather than the will TCU ever get to the point where they can compete for national championships year out because they have a great defensive mind in Gary Patterson. I don't think that's the reality that we need to be looking for.
Well, here's the counterpoint.
Yeah.
The one major professional sport that we know and some of us love, the NFL, professional football, has gone to extreme lengths to promote parity. You could finish with 3 wins one year and the next year go to the playoffs, go to the Super Bowl, finish 13-3. That is not an uncommon occurrence in the NFL. It's something that happens, more often than you might think. What is the argument against the NFL that we hear, at least on our front, that it's corporate, that it's soulless, that it does not have nearly the same level of passion that we see in the college game? So I could certainly imagine if, let's say you're, a Purdue fan, say you're a UCF fan, that promise of parity might be something rather attractive to you. But what does it do to the sport? Does it make things more interesting in the long run? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I know what it's done to the NFL, and it hasn't worked to promote passion.
We're having this conversation because of one man, right? Are we having this conversation because of Nick Saban?
Probably.
Because everybody else that has had somewhat sustained success, and even Nick Saban to a certain degree, has done so because of a vacuum of some kind. So not that that's the reason for the success, but it's a contributing factor. Like Clemson is soaring right now, and there's a Florida State vacuum and a Miami vacuum, right?
One of the other questions that we got in here somewhere, and I don't know if it's on the sheet, but somebody asked the question, are dynasties good for college football?
Right.
You could extend that out. Are dynasties good for sports?
Hasn't college football always been dynastic?
For sure. So my answer to that is, yeah, it's good. It's good because you've always got someone to root against.
Well, you always got something to root against, and then when that giant redwood of a dynasty is chopped down, whether it's Quiz Rogers running fly sweeps or it's, Swag Kelly throwing for a bajillion yards against Alabama or Texas losing to Kansas State, those are the games that we remember. Those are, Ohio State losing to Purdue or Michigan losing to Iowa, whatever. Those are what we live for, those games, those weeks, those scenarios. And so you have to have that. I mean, if you don't like it, you have to have that bad guy. If you do like it, you appreciate the excellence, you appreciate talent all over the field, and there's sort of something for everybody.
Yeah.
We are of the mind, I'll speak for myself, but I think you're somewhere around here as well, that the point of college football is not national championships. It's the climb, it's not the peak, right?
Okay, so you're going Miley Cyrus.
I'm always going to go Miley Cyrus.
I disagree
but if Nick
with
Saban
that
doesn't,
notion.
if Nick
some
Saban
degree.
doesn't exist
Right.
in the way that he does, if he's not the winning cyborg that is unparalleled historically, let's say Alabama has a really good but not crazy excellent unmatched coach. They're going to lose 1 year to LSU in a way that they wouldn't with Nick Saban there. They're going to lose more often to Auburn, throwing a Mississippi State loss here at the peak of Dan Mullen. If Florida hires better, perhaps they lose in an SEC championship to a better Florida coach than Jim McElwain, et cetera, et cetera. This conversation has shifted to an unrealistic place because Nick Saban is an unrealistically excellent coach.
Nick Saban is a big part of the reason for the conversation.
Yeah.
I would disagree somewhat on the point of college football, and that feeds back into previous conversations we've had about the playoff system and what that's for, and we can save that for another day. The
point of college football is Floyd of Rosedale.
Sure, why not?
That's all it
Why
is. I mean, that to me, it really is. What's that, Iowa,
we'll
Minnesota?
Talk about this at a later point in time. We could burn a whole show on this, literally.
Sure. Okay.
An interesting topic, right, in solidverbal@gmail.com. Where do you want to go next?
All right, let's go to... I like this question a lot because he has been a long, long time verbaler, and we make fun of the program that he likes a lot because both of our schools play them pretty often. One Fell Swoop, who is now One Swell Foop, I guess, on Twitter.
Foop, yeah.
Most USC fans / alumni right now are just demoralized and disgusted. How can we possibly have a positive outlook on the 2019 season? So beyond that, let's be glass half full right now with USC.
Graham Harrell was a name that people were after as well.
Very, very true.
He might not have the sex appeal of one Cliff Kingsbury. I mean that in a football sense, but Cliff Kingsbury was a name.
Maybe you don't.
Maybe I don't. Not that there's anything wrong with. No, the point is, look.
Yeah.
Getting Graham Harrell, I think was a nice pickup for Clay Helton.
So, in looking at USC, there's a few things to consider. One, how many teams in their division, forget the conference because it's not a strong conference right now. How many teams in their division are on solid ground, have the infrastructure to win 9 games? I disagree. I think Utah does.
Utah, okay. But outside Utah, it's slim pickings.
Right now, we're entering the more and more of ASU and the Herm Edwards, who are interesting this year, but not super consistent. Very good at home, terrible away from Tempe. UCLA was a nightmare last year. We presume good things, but we really have no way of looking at 2019 and saying, ooh, they're making a huge move this year. I like their quarterback, but Arizona, we'll see. They have the potential to have a dynamic quarterback, but I don't think they're on the most solid of ground with how they began 2018. Colorado has a new coach. So the hope is nobody's in a demonstrably better place.
Utah's gonna
other than Utah.
Their quarterback's gonna get hurt 3/4 of the way through the year, and they're gonna win 9 games, and no one's gonna see it coming. That's Utah's season.
So there's something about that where if USC is if they're frisky, and I have the schedule in front of me as well, but the North is certainly more difficult. Washington State, the Huskies obviously as well are tough. Oregon has really reinforced with a lot of talent, especially in this year's class. Stanford's always going to be tough. Cal's got a great defense. Oregon State's garbage. But USC, with talent on both sides of the ball, they've got a lot of really good young linebackers. They've recruited the secondary very well. I know that they started a true freshman safety last year. I think it's Talanoa Hufanga, who's a big hitter. Their schedule is... they don't play what we can consider to be a definitely winnable game until mid-October. But there's not definite losses outside of the at Washington, at Notre Dame. I think there's a bye week between them as well, though. So it's Fresno, Stanford. They go to BYU with a promising young quarterback that is secretly very good in Zach Wilson. Utah at home, at least. And then after the Washington, Notre Dame thing, it's Arizona, Colorado, at Colorado, Oregon at home, at ASU, at Cal, UCLA. They're more talented than everybody on this schedule than Washington, other than perhaps Washington and Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So in terms of they could field a good defense, there's defensive continuity with Clancy Pendergast and a lot of talent there. On offense, I don't even know if JT Daniels was the best quarterback on their roster last year. I really liked Jack Sears against ASU. But presumably everybody's taking a step forward and there's somewhat of a fresh schematic start, even if the Clay Helton era feels doomed already.
Okay. That's fair. I think that's
so
fair.
Could they go 9-3 and win a bowl?
Sure.
I don't think it's unrealistic.
Sure. They have challenges, though. For sure, they have challenges. Since we talked about JT
That's
Daniels,
the glass half full.
Yeah, that's the glass half full. Thank you.
Yeah.
One swell foop.
Yep.
Don't give up. I want to dovetail from JT Daniels, though, into another question that we got here from Edward.
Okay.
Edward. A bit of a self-serving question because it pertains to Notre Dame, but it talks about 5-star quarterbacks, and he says, why has Notre Dame had so much trouble recruiting and developing a true 5-star quarterback under Brian Kelly? So I did a lot of research on this question.
This is like the greatest Notre Dame question. They just went 12-0 and went to the playoffs.
Exactly.
Like, why can't they?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
why can't they pull a Trevor Lawrence?
He's touching a little bit of a nerve here.
Okay.
So I did want to address it. First and foremost, we can't answer the question before we define on our own what, quote, a true 5-star quarterback really means.
Yeah, well, I think he literally means like a 5-star 24/7 like premium recruit. Turned that into like what Jimmy Clausen was.
Right.
Like the no-brainer Trevor Lawrence type who can come in, and obviously it's front and center because Notre Dame just got worked over by that guy.
That's right. So we are in agreement on what that means. So
yeah.
I went back on 24/7 and I looked at all 10 recruiting classes since Brian Kelly took over. His first class at Notre Dame was a 2010 class. I didn't just look at I looked nationally to see what was going on.
Yeah.
There have been a total of 21 5-star quarterbacks in that time period, about 2 to 3 every year. Of those 21 kids, 10 of them, almost 50% went to SEC schools. 4 of them went to the Pac-12, USC twice, I want to say, UCLA and Stanford. 3 went to the ACC, 2 went to the Big Ten, 1 to the Big 12 this year, Spencer Rattler, and 1 did go to Notre Dame. So my first takeaway...
Who went to Notre Dame?
Gunnar Kiel. You all remember the Gunnar Kiel era, don't you?
Loved it.
My first takeaway is that true 5-star quarterbacks don't grow on trees.
Yeah, there's how many a year generally?
2 to 3. 2 to 3.
Yeah.
So if you get 1 out of 21, I get it. That's like less than 5%. But relative to the rest of college football, that ain't bad.
Right.
Aren't a lot of programs getting 5-star kids. A lot, quite frankly, have 0. So that's the first point. The second point, and I'd say forget about Spencer Rattler, forget about Bo Nix, who's going to Auburn. They're from this year's class. If you look at the other 19 names on the list, there are at least 5 of them that we need to see more from. All right, we need to see if Justin Fields can develop, if he can be a true 5-star, if he can showcase that on the field. We don't know. Same deal with kids like Hunter Johnson and Davis Mills. Shea Patterson, a 5-star kid, a transfer from Ole Miss. He's been good. I don't know if he's been...
pretty good.
I don't know if he's been transcendent,
right.
But we need to see more of him. And then you got other kids on this list, like Kyle Allen and Max Brown and Gunnar Kiel, who definitely did not work out. They weren't that quarterback when they got on campus. So my second point is that you've really got like a 50% chance of living up to that label. If you pull a kid like that, it's like 50%.
Well, so, okay, I think all of what you said is correct. There are some other factors. One, you have to have the 5-star who's going to thrive at your school, who is a good mix between the players on the team, and some of them are ready to play right away. Some of them need a year or two. Some of them need a redshirt year. You need to mesh well with the offensive coaching staff, just general comfort transitioning from high school to college. And that's true of every player, but the spotlight is especially bright and the expectations are enormous for somebody who is going, if you are a 5-star quarterback, you're going to come in and people are going to say, I can't wait to see him lead us to glory. That is what is going to be saddled on you from day one. And then you add in the Notre Dame factor. And the Notre Dame factor is if you take 100 5-star quarterbacks, throw them anywhere in the country, in Southern California, in Florida, wherever, in Texas, and then you say, how many of you want to play college in cold weather? Okay, you take out 38 of them, right? And then how many of you want to go to college with a ton more of a workload than the average top college football school academically? Okay, throw out another 30 of them. How many of you want to not really play in a conference with traditional rivalry games, play some of your games out west, some of your games against Wake Forest and NC State and Clemson, whatever, that you can throw out another 15 of them. How many of you want to go to a school where you have to go to church? You have to go to mass. Okay, throw out another 9 of them. And it's just, it's such a specific, and I'm not saying any of that is bad. I'm saying to get a top kid to Notre Dame means you are dealing with a smaller pool of top kids, whether it's because of academics, whether it's because of religion, whether it's because of location and weather, whatever, than many other schools are offering. So the pool is already going to be smaller.
And it's, quite frankly, very hard to get a 5-star kid, was my first
Absolutely.
point. And everything you're saying there 100% plays in. The more concerning part of this, to me as a Notre Dame fan, is the development angle, not the recruiting angle. Recruiting's hard, and it's even harder to get a 5-star kid for a variety of reasons. Maybe some of those are emphasized at Notre Dame. But the real question to me has less to do with the star ratings, more to do with development. Why isn't Notre Dame turning kids into like Baker Mayfield? And why don't we have that at Notre Dame? There's no easy answer to it. And especially so because the quarterback position at Notre Dame has been somewhat cursed over the last 10 years. They've had academic suspensions and the injuries, crowded depth charts. All of that complicates the matter.
Tommies who now want to be named Tom.
That's right. A handful of different coordinators. Throw that in the mix as well. None of that has helped. I don't know if you can point to any one thing where I will agree with Edward, and then I promise we'll move on, is that development certainly is an open question. I've long had a bit of anxiety around the fact that from year to year, does not feel like quarterbacks at Notre Dame get all that much better.
Right.
That's a problem.
Well, isn't this the same thing anywhere that's just not Notre Dame, where you just need that first hit and then everything sort of spirals from there? So, okay, you need that first awesome quarterback. And so with Clemson, maybe is it Taj Boyd begets Deshaun Watson begets Trevor Lawrence. I want to be the next. Reggie Bush begets Joe McKnight. LaMichael James begets DeAnthony Thomas. Percy Harvin begets.
Champions breed champions, sure.
Right, where it's just like, I want to be the next blank. And if we're talking specifically about Notre Dame quarterbacks, you're saying, do I want to be the next Jimmy Clausen, Tommy Rees, Dane Christ, Deshaun Kaiser, Ian Book? Like, these are not names that are leading game day necessarily, because they're all good in their own way to whatever extent. But how many kids are at home saying, I need to be the next Ian Book? I don't know that there are many. And he's a playoff quarterback, but it's just the system that they run and the way that they play is not necessarily that. Whereas at Oklahoma, you have Jason White, Sam Bradford.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
Who's the star who's the star?
No.
Dame player?
I agree with what you're talking about. I agree generally. I don't know if it's a system thing. I think it
might not be a system thing, but it's a star thing where you're just like, okay, this Notre Dame has a dude at whatever position.
I think that
they've had it at different positions.
I think that can certainly be a factor.
You need that first.
Their
dude.
offensive line, for example, has
Definitely
been a major selling point for top recruits. They're doing very well along the offensive line. That can absolutely play a factor at the quarterback position. I don't know if it's so much a system thing. I think it's got on some level to be a coaching thing, because none of these quarterbacks have gotten better from year to year. That's a bigger issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think where you see that recruiting success, where this star recruit turns into a star player, a lot of it is because of a confidence in that coaching staff to develop them into what they've been watching on TV.
Okay. Here we go. Joel.
Yeah.
Will Jalen Hurts be in New York City as a Heisman finalist?
Good transition.
Thank you. Will Oklahoma be back in the playoffs? How much improvement will Alex Grinch bring to the Oklahoma defense? So we've got 3 Oklahoma-centric questions. We talked about it. If you missed the boat, if you've been detoxing from college football like the rest of normal, well-adjusted gentlemen and women out there, don't feel bad. Jalen Hurts transferred to Oklahoma. He will be their quarterback, presumably. Yep. Oklahoma brings back a lot from last year, so it stands to reason they have a pretty good chance at the playoff. And as we illustrated on the program time and time again, the defense was a huge problem This is a huge problem to the extent that they just stop playing it and hope for a couple big plays per game down the stretch.
Yeah.
Now they bring in Alex Grinch, formerly of Ohio State, formerly of Washington State. He's a guy
Ghost generator.
Yeah, he's a ghost generator. Thank you. He's come in. He's made his mark in a hurry pretty much everywhere he's been. So you can pick which one of those tentacles you wish to address, Dan.
So Jalen Hurts will have every opportunity to succeed to that point. Oklahoma's on a Heisman streak, which is not a thing a lot of teams can say. So he will have every opportunity. What was the rub on him? He had a very successful career at Alabama. The rub on him was tentative going downfield.
Yes.
He didn't want to make mistakes, which is amazing and it's incredible. I remember it was 2 years ago when he did start I don't know if it was conference teams or ranked teams or teams with a winning record. It was something like 12 touchdowns to 0 or 1 interception. Something incredibly impressive. But at Oklahoma, that quarterback position is not going to be able to lean on the defense for field position and stops. He will be able to lean on the running game with a couple of promising young running backs, but he will have every opportunity. They're bringing in just a ridiculous and unfair class of receivers now. They return some talent there. I know they lose, Hollywood Brown is gone, but he will have every opportunity to do so. I think 3 in a row is too many. I can't imagine that, because it is difficult as a grad transfer to come in, and we have another question about this, that a lot of times grad transfers exist because they're beaten out. And they're beaten out for a reason. In most cases, a clear weakness, whether it's a new coach coming in with a different system, whether it's just a new quarterback coming in who's better. But it's very rare that we see excellent quarterbacks transfer and thrive if they're beaten out. Like Russell Wilson obviously did. Gardner Minshew did for scheme reasons. Vernon Adams thrived, but he was not beaten out at Eastern Washington. We've seen it happen.
Sure.
But there's also that element of, he has a very specific weakness and they found somebody who doesn't, and he's gone now.
It's an incredible move, though, for Lincoln Riley, just on this front, for a number of reasons. But on this front in particular, they're bringing in a true 5-star quarterback that presumably will develop under the tutelage of Mr. Riley. Jalen Hurts is a quarterback who obviously is proven to some extent, won some high-level college football games, got Alabama to a national championship, played a half of that national championship.
Terribly.
Programs don't generally work out on offense when you're jumping from flame to flame or bringing in quarterback transfers every year. And you basically have to reboot. Even Kyler Murray, though he was a transfer, had a year in that system.
Correct.
To learn while Baker Mayfield was winning his Heisman Trophy. So my point here is this gives Lincoln Riley that bridge where he can bring in someone with experience, maybe not experience with the program, but they can build experience now with their youngin' and presumably hit the ground running then in 2020.
I think he'll be fine. I think he will be a top 15 or 20 quarterback in the country. But it's difficult for me to see him thriving in a way that he couldn't at Alabama, where he had a lot of opportunity to there as well.
You could take any quarterback in the country, bet against their chances for the Heisman Trophy, and the odds will ever be in your favor because it is such a hard thing to win. There's so many variables. One other thing that works in Jalen Hurts' favor here is the fact that we saw Lincoln Riley adapt his offense on the fly last year as some injuries happened, as he kind of learned his personnel, and he did a masterful job of that. So if he can tailor a system to Jalen Hurts' skill set, that would seemingly bode pretty well for him.
Yeah, and John asked a question along these lines that we won't go too deep into. Why does somebody like Russell Wilson or Gardner Minshew succeed and others like Malik Zaire and the Zaire and Max Brown not succeed as much as grad transfer quarterbacks? Is it coaching scheme, personalities? Can these factors help us predict the potential for success for the 2019 quarterback transfers, of which we have a lot?
Yeah.
I would say sticking with grad transfer, you are coming in either with one or sometimes, we've seen a couple times, a couple years to play, and it just not work out. And I think a lot of that is, one, you got beaten out. You might be just a really good backup quarterback at a top Power 5 place, and that's fine. Or two, you don't have much time to make an impression and build a rapport and learn the offense and build confidence with those around you. And sometimes it's just a bad fit. Sometimes you are just, supposed to be playing at William and Mary Bill and Mary. Sometimes you should just be playing at an FCS school or a lower level Power 5 school, and a school for whatever reason, maybe like Florida State this year, doesn't have the bodies, and there's like, we need to grab somebody. And then you talk yourself into, like I did with, what was his name? It was Prukop. Yeah. Dakota Prukop. Yes. He had the flat-footed, whatever. He was fine, but nothing special. And they ran out, like you mentioned, jumping flame to flame, as Oregon was doing with grad transfer quarterbacks. You need to find somebody who did well enough at their place, like Russell Wilson did at NC State, and for whatever reason, disagreement over baseball, disagreement over scheme, like Gardner Minshew committed to ECU because he thought he would be playing for Lincoln Riley. He was an air raid guy. I'm like, oh, no, not air. Oh, okay. Went to Mike Leach in Washington State, much better fit, and had the personality to build, obviously. Huge personality. Everybody wanted to play with him, and he backed it up with his arm. And I just think that elixir is pretty rare to find.
Well, it's hard unless you're, quite frankly, a guy with a high profile like a Jalen Hurts, because oftentimes these are kids just looking for a place to play. Mm-hmm. And that might be the top priority over the scheme and the fit and all the things that I think we know now are more important when it comes to having success versus otherwise. Somebody had sent us numbers way back when on success, however they defined it, among grad transfer quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. It's actually quite low.
There was a piece, in The Athletic, I believe it was Max Olson, or gosh, I forget who wrote something like that, but continue.
Yeah, I mean, there are far more Malik Zaires and Max Browns than there are Russell Wilsons and Gardner Minshews out there.
It takes time. I think that's like the reality.
It's about trust, babe. That's what
it's about trust, but it's also, you're not going to find, like Vernon Adams was a case where he had success against Pac-12, Pac-10 teams, whatever it was back then, Pac-12 teams at Eastern Washington. He had that track record. There were data points. We're like, okay, he is dominating these defenses. And in other situations, we don't have those data points. You need the time, you need the reps, and there's just, everybody wants their grad transfer QB to come in like a Lou Williams or Eddie House, if you're talking about like NBA, those guys who just come in and pop some threes and go back to the bench. I don't think that is all that easy to find at all with such a difficult position.
All right, Dan, before we go any further, every man looks better, feels better, is more confident when he puts on a suit. Especially if it's an Indochino suit. Indochino, the world's most exciting made-to-measure menswear company. They have suits and shirts that fit your exact measurements with unparalleled comfort. You can visit a stylist at an Indochino showroom and have your measurements taken in person, or you can measure yourself online and shop at Indochino.com. That's Indochino.com. Then you pick your fabrics and colors, you design your customizations, and you hit the submit button. You wait, you relax. Your suit gets professionally made for you and sent on out in a couple of weeks. Now, here's the deal. For a long time,
with us, Ty.
I'm going to
level with us.
Listen. With Indochino, we have gotten, and I'm not kidding, numerous compliments. And we turn people on to this for their wedding, for their formal occasion. But until this point, neither you nor I actually had an Indochino suit.
Correct.
We received notice from our people that you and I now both qualify to get a free Indochino suit.
Oh my gosh. Ty,
some plans have been made on the secret G-chat for you and I to gather in your hood and maybe go together to be measured for these Indochino suits.
Which, by the way, you mentioned you can submit everything online that you want to do.
That's right.
If you go to Indochino.com, they have showrooms. If you're in or near a large city in North America, they've got a lot of places you can go and have your contours measured, Ty.
That's right.
This is you can feel like $1 gajillion getting a custom suit.
We're going to make a day of this. We're going to bond over our suits.
Will we take pictures? Dumb and Dumber?
Yeah.
Okay.
This week, our listeners can get any premium Indochino suit just $359.
Oh, come on.
At Indochino.com. You enter
That's
the code.
just the jacket, right?
No, that's the whole damn thing.
What?
Indochino.com. Enter the code SOLID at checkout. 50% off the regular price. Made to measure premium suit. Shipping's free. Go to Indochino.com, promo code SOLID. Any premium Indochino suit for just $359 plus shipping. An incredible deal for a premium made-to-measure suit. Once you go custom, you don't go back. Where are we going next?
Absolutely true. Okay, let's... Oh, God, I'm just thinking about my suit. I got distracted. I don't know if I'm going to
What's going to happen when we go is you're going to talk me into some weird customization.
Of course
and
I am.
You're going to be able to package it in a way that it feels very logical and very trendy. And then I'm going to be on the long car ride home. I'm going to think, why did I let Dan do that?
No, Ty, I've got your best interests in mind here. This is not anything I'm doing for laughs.
In fairness, you did help me pick out a pair of sneakers that didn't look like dad's shoes. And I appreciate
That's
that.
right. Paul wants to know, what is the most obscure penalty you guys have witnessed in all your years of watching college football? Mine was an illegal forward kick. Obscure penalty.
Okay.
So I have two.
Okay.
Recently, I loved the double forward pass penalty in the Cheez-It Bowl. An unbelievable attempt. Not only a double pass, but throwing two forward passes on one play. It was magic. And then how do you not, I mean, even though the penalty itself is common, I forget if it was a personal foul or a block in the back, but Ron Cherry, 2007, 6, 7, somewhere in there. It was Maryland, NC State. It was, I think, a block in the back, personal foul, giving him the business.
Yeah.
Was what it was called over the stadium loudspeakers. I think it was NC State getting murdered by Maryland. I think it was an old ACC matchup that no longer exists. Block in the back, personal foul. He was giving him the business because I think somebody got punched or hit in the giblets.
The giblets, huh?
Yeah. The old giblet punch.
So, I don't know if this is obscure.
Okay.
The way that it feels like it's obscure to me, but I just have a problem with the leaping penalty.
Okay, why? Because it's an athletic move that
I feel like you should be able to do it. Like someone's going to try and kick a field goal or an extra point, and if you can like jump up on someone's back, or I don't know, if you can figure out a way to get your body in front of it and knock it down, that seems like that should be legal to me.
I just read the Bill Belichick book. Because I just love nerding out about coaches sometimes. That's how I get my football fix. I read these giant tomes of college football coaching or football coaching. And his football career ended. He was a backup center, and his coach at Wesleyan, I want to say is where he played, devised the perfect, not at all, blocking strategy for kicks. Basically, the two defensive tackles right in front of the center were to take out the center's legs and pin him after the snap, allowing linebackers to pursue unimpeded up the A-gap to block the kick. And they had Bill Belichick do this as the backup center. He was like the guinea pig. In practice, he had to do it like 10 times to have his legs taken out and pinned, and his legs snapped. And it was never a legal move. It was so ugly and bad. So it's a safety thing is what I'm trying to tell you with the leaping and the centers and everything.
No, I get it. I get it. But it just, feels like it's something you should be able to do. Block a kick.
I understand. I'm with you. And
all right.
I love a good kick. I love a good extra point block.
Yeah.
Because it's such a routine thing to have an extra point through the uprights and then, oh, what? Huh? What? 6? No. What? That's great. Next question. Somebody asked us about the most disrespected by sports media teams.
Oh.
Do you have any answers? I mean, what does that actually mean? Like accomplishments aren't acknowledged?
I guess.
Or people just don't like their fans online, and so they like making fun of them, like Florida State and Ohio State.
Most disrespected. Michigan State obviously is the running joke.
Has to be.
For their disrespect. I would say very generally that teams in far off places like Washington State,
who are consistently winning,
inadvertently fall into this category more often than not.
People still disrespect the Colgate defense that Paul Schaffner threw together with chicken wire and heart. That's my answer for FCS. Yeah, I think that's what it is. The places that I don't think what can we do? We can only talk about it so much. We do 2 shows a week during the season, but there are certain teams where it is just harder to win there, and coaches who are able to. Utah making the leap from a Mountain West school, even though they did so, gradually, and they built up and they started dominating the Mountain West and blah, blah, blah. They did it right. But Utah winning consistently with Kyle Whittingham, I think we just sort of accept and don't really appreciate perhaps as much as we should. Washington State's a good answer. What Iowa State has done in winning and becoming a consistent bowl team and beating some giants, I think Northwestern, what they've done with, it's more difficult to win there for a long time. They had bad facilities. I know they recently upgraded them. I think what Virginia has done with Bronco Mendenhall, I don't think they're disrespected, but it's impressive nonetheless to win at these places that just don't have the resources. Not that, again, Virginia has plenty. Trust me.
All right,
Virginia's fine. So those are the teams I think that are winning and going to bowls consistently, like where Purdue came from, where they were with Darrell Hazel to where they are now with Jeff Brom. I don't think people are disrespecting them, but I think it should be pointed out that they have steeper climbs than most and are doing so anyway. They're getting to the top for them.
All right, before we get to some life questions here. First time, long time from Mort in Columbus. He says, do you find the off-field drama, the TV contracts, the conference realignment, recruiting flips, and other oddities, the off-field stuff, as boring and tedious as I do? For me, it's mostly a reminder that I'm not watching actual football. Dan, what are your thoughts?
Right. For most people, for most teams, right, if the math checks out, you get 12 days out of 365. And this has just become a thing in sports. I mean, how much, when you pay attention to ESPN or Fox or SI or any of these big places, how much of the NBA headlines are about, oh, shoot, Chris Middleton, at 22-10, or how much is, ooh, Giannis is thinking about drafting Steph Curry, number 1 in the All-Star. Ooh, Anthony Davis has requested a trade. This is everywhere. This is, the NFL has created a year-long thing.
Yeah.
The NBA is a year-long thing. And this is college football college football does not sell winning. College football, to me, sells hope. College football is in the hope business, and that's recruiting and new coaches and spring practice and fall camp. And, ooh, this guy beat out this guy for a weak side linebacker. That's what is being sold more than anything, right or wrong.
Sure.
So I understand missing actual football, and I think this is a very good time to work on other parts of your life if you don't like the drama and the mundane, oh, the SEC brought in $44 million because of their TV deal compared to 31 for the Pac-12. It's fine if you don't like it. Ultimately, it's kind of inconsequential.
Sure.
Go get your mile time up. And he actually said, how do I learn to cook Mexican food? Let's make you a Mexican chef this spring.
Here's the other thing I'd add, Mort. Thank you for writing in. Thank you for listening for a long time. We're not the best people to ask on this topic because we
trade in this.
We require there to be news on TV contracts and conference realignment, recruiting flips, all the arrests, the things that maybe don't truly matter in the scheme of football. We require that stuff in order to do a year-round show. So inevitably, Dan and I are a little bit more interested in than maybe some of your other buddies who are into college football.
We still make up fake fantasy drafts.
We do.
We still do brackets for things that are secretly garbage that people seem to like but are actually garbage. And so we at least try to, because I think he's right. I think the off-field drama is ephemeral. It disappears. It ultimately is not going to mean much unless it's a star player or a great coach and unless it turns your program upside down. So I'm okay with you checking out. Just throw us the download. That's all I'm here to say. Throw us the download and then go listen to whatever, your mom's house.
Sam says, when in the dating process,
should we have like a sound as we now transition away from college football after somebody said he finds it tedious when we transition? Not we, but as America transitions. Excuse me.
Here we go.
The college football world. Okay.
That was the first thing I had at the ready.
The college football portion of this show has basically concluded. I'm not going to say that with absolution, but I think it has concluded.
Yeah, play the dramatic sound. The lights are coming down. Now we're going to talk a little life.
Yeah, let's talk some life.
Sam says, when in the dating process, For which date number is Chili's an acceptable date?
Okay.
Some would say the first date. I say the third because the first and second should be unique. And the third should be, let's do something common together to see how much we actually enjoy each other's company, minus the nice dinners or fancy bars. Dan, Chili's. I'm just going to surmise here.
Where was your first date with Solid Wife Kate?
I believe Red Robin.
Yeah, so that's a Chili's cousin, so you can speak to this.
Yeah. I believe you probably have a hotter take on this matter than I do.
Okay, so I don't want to be a cityist, regionist, geographist, because I've grew up in the Los Angeles area and I live in New York. So I'm not going to tell you not to eat at Chili's because Chili's is fine. I'm going to say, one, Chili's is not super impressive if you have a comparable local option. Keep that money in your neighborhood. You know, instead of eating good in the neighborhood, what is that, Applebee's?
That'll be Applebee's.
That's Applebee's. If there is a Chili's-like burger beer bar that is good and cool and interesting, maybe with an outside eating option, if it's appropriate for that time of year, I would avoid Chili's as long as possible, unless it's particularly convenient. Like you're starving when you get out of a movie, and there's a Chili's.
See,
right
and
here.
that was the deal with Red Robin.
Sure,
it was
there's
right
nothing,
next to
absolutely nothing wrong.
Right next to the movie theater.
But this is what you have to keep in mind: you're trying to impress your date. Right? First date, you're trying to not necessarily impress her like, oh, I have a ton of money and I'm charming and suave. You want to impress her by saying, I'm not creepy and weird. That's the biggest priority. It doesn't matter where you eat. If you eat at Chili's, you eat at Chili's. Who cares? So if you want it to be date one, that's fine. I would try to get more creative with it or more local with it. I would say date one, I'm not creepy and weird. Date two, let me confirm, I'm definitely not creepy and weird. That's what's most important. The food doesn't matter as much. Date three, I would say, once you've confirmed that you're not creepy and weird, I think you should make a push. Doesn't have to happen. Maybe cook for your date.
Okay.
I think that's an interesting. It shows.
So you're anti-Chili's, is what you're telling me. This is essentially.
I'm not anti-Chili's.
You're anti-Chili's. You can admit it.
But what I will say is,
you can admit it, Dan.
As much as Chili's is okay. It's not bad. It's not great, but it's fine.
Great corn on the cob.
As much as they try, Chili's is never going to be able to replicate a really good local place that has character, that has regulars, whatever. Even if the food isn't as good, there's something about the energy of a good local place that you lose by going to a national chain. Is that fair?
Absolutely fair.
Okay,
absolutely fair.
So I would avoid the corporate energy as long as possible.
The Red Robin thing,
it's convenient.
The Red Robin thing for me was super convenient. That's why we went there.
Right. That's you are a Red Robin success story.
That's right. Absolutely. I would also add,
if it's convenient, go. But if you have the choice, opt local.
You also may be able to accentuate your personality a bit. If you could sort of play off the whole Chili's thing and turn it into an inside joke, that could have some legs.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. That could make for a fun date. But generally, I think I'm with you.
Do you think...
The longer you can push it off, the better.
Do you think Sam is asking us this question? I don't know if this is a man, woman, whatever, but do you think Sam is asking us this question because he's into somebody, doesn't want to be embarrassed if they have like snooty tastes or whatever, but Sam effing loves Chili's.
Chili's is his wheelhouse.
Like, fudge, I need those ribs. Like he doesn't want to be embarrassed that he loves it so much.
Yeah.
Like Sam is just all about Chili's.
He sent this in from a Chili's.
Right. This is written by Samuel L. Chili, founder of Chili's. I think it's acceptable whenever. Just you want that non-corporate energy to last as long as possible.
You got to be aware of the fact that you're at a Chili's, I think is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
While you're there. Okay. Good question, by the way.
Okay. Next.
Bo writes in, as someone who brews beer for a living.
Shout out Druid City Brewing.
I listen to a lot of music. Other than American football, what other Midwest emo should I brew to here in Tuscaloosa? Also, any chalkboard ideas?
Oh, wow.
We were on the Druid City chalkboard.
We were
not earlier this year.
Famous chalkboard. A lot of college football related drawings.
Which was like a huge deal. We were very excited about that. on the secret Solid Verbal G chat.
Big honor. Okay, Midwestern emo bands. Ty, do you have? I have suggestions. Do you have any?
You got to go first on emo. You know that.
All right. So if you're going authentically Midwestern emo, probably Cap and Jazz. They've been around forever. They're a Midwestern pioneer on the emo scene. There's a band, I don't even know if they exist anymore. There's a band called Spitalfield from Chicago. Album Remember Right Now. Great. From early 2000s. Promise Ring, classic. They're from Milwaukee. If we consider Lawrence, Kansas to be Midwest, which I think is probably Plains, but Midwest adjacent, obviously you've got your Get Up Kids, Alkaline Trios from Chicago. And I'll give them a bonus. Nowhere near the Midwest, but I think it would work for brewing beer. There's a band from Orange County, also don't think they exist anymore. Shows how old we are, called Limbeck.
Yeah, okay.
Limbeck.
We talked about them on the show.
We absolutely have talked about Limbeck. I think Limbeck would be great. I think the album is Hi, Everything's Great, or Hey, Everything's Fine. There's two of them that are there's an acoustic version that has, one of them's great, one of them's fine, whatever. That would be my recommendation. Cap and Jazz, Alkaline Trio, Get Up Kids, Promise Ring, Spitalfield, bonus, Limbeck.
My thing was more pop punk. And so
you'll say okay.
Early Fall Out Boy, they're from Chicago.
Yeah.
And certainly early All-American Rejects from Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's the Get Up Kids Plains corollary, but yeah.
Yes, okay.
What is the most emo team in the SEC? And I don't generally like these questions.
Emo, huh?
So the most emo team in the SEC, this is from Andy, and why is it South Carolina? I think we need to define broadly how we're approaching this.
So sort of like a little bit of self-loathing.
Doesn't really fit in. Got some heartbreak.
A lot of heartbreak.
Violent imagery. There's an underground element to emo where your emotions out for everybody to see.
Okay, I'm thinking of a couple teams here.
South Carolina works. Pretty well.
Why does South Carolina work to you?
So South Carolina, I believe, were they the most recent team to join the SEC before Mizzou and A&M?
That is correct.
So they're like the new kid trying to fit in. That's a definite theme. Wearing their emotions for everybody to see. Will Muschamp, check.
Yep.
Heartbreak, played a lot of close games this year.
Yep.
Check. Violent imagery, again, Muschamp. There's the underground elements. I don't know if that fully fits, but they play Sandstorm, and that feels like it also was a hit during the time emo really soared. So that feels right. I think South Carolina is a good answer. I would also say Mississippi State.
Mississippi State is one that comes to mind. I was going to say Missouri. Missouri might be the easy answer, the low-hanging fruit, because they're one of the newer kids on the block. But the one thing that comes to mind for me, and this is just on a personal level, but when I'm putting in tags on some of the SEC shows that we do, and I have to tag a posting with all of the team names in the SEC, inevitably I forget about Missouri, because in my mind, maybe it's just like a weird mental block. I don't know. Missouri does not feel like they're part of the southeast part of the United States. That's
neither does Houston.
Neither does Houston.
College Station.
Absolutely. And I forget them too. But more often than not, Missouri is the team I forget because they just don't feel like they belong.
And they're in the East, and certainly it's not as high profile as the West. That's fine.
Emotion, Barry Odom had that emotional tirade. What was it, a year ago?
That's true. Okay.
Right? Some heartbreak. We've watched the offense. We've watched the defense at times. Like each has had their own trials and tribulations.
The 2015 offense, down and out, in a bad place.
So I think Missouri might be low-hanging fruit, but that's probably my answer.
I have Mississippi State here just because of the feeling alienated in a way. Starkville is a little bit different than the rest of the SEC in terms of geography and attitude. Not in a good or bad way. They're just different. And then there is the element of that emo or screamo singer or whatever holding the mic over the crowd, and you get that loud feedback from the crowd yelling the lyrics, and there's that cowbell element where you're getting that audience participation. Like you go into a dashboard show, you go to whatever show, and you have that roar from the crowd. And I think Mississippi State fits that. Next question comes to us. This I'm gonna throw to you. I have an answer, but I know you're gonna feel more passionately about this because you will drop me as soon as the Weather Channel comes calling.
That's right. Oh my God, yeah.
If you were saying we want you to be Cantori 2.0, you will change your phone number and block me. You have endless money, Curtis asks, and the time for 1 whole year, and you can chase storms anywhere. Top 5 types of weather events you'd want to witness in person.
Wow.
So this isn't, I guess it's chasing, but it's also you just want to be present to see what it's like.
Yeah. Well, okay. See, I feel very guilty answering this question because the kinds of things that I'd like to see probably result in hardship for a lot of people.
Okay.
Many of whom listen to the show. So
asterisk.
I'm not trying to champion any of these.
How many of these
events.
things would you like to see in a remote place with nobody living? So nobody is going to be physically affected by this crazy storm. You are able to go see it in a barren wasteland or an uninhabited place.
A tornado would be cool on a desert.
Tornado would be cool.
Tornado. There are people who do this for a living. A tornado.
You ever see those like tankers?
Yeah.
That the storm chasers are in that weigh a bajillion pounds.
They're like tanks, man.
They are basically tanks. Have you been in a whiteout?
I've been in a whiteout. Yeah, I've been in a whiteout.
How is a whiteout?
It's crazy. It's all white.
It's wild.
It is wild.
I never really have. I've been snowed in, and that's blizzard conditions, but I don't think I've ever been able to stand outside and not see anything in front of like my hands. Have you ever been on a mountain? I would love to be adjacent to an avalanche.
But is that a weather event? That's not a weather event.
It's a weather event in that you need a lot of snow, but then conditions change, obviously, on the mountain.
So it's like in the same vein as storm surge at a hurricane. It's like a result of another phenomenon.
If I could be in a dope cabin on an adjacent mountain and just be sipping coffee, watching an avalanche affect no human life, that'd be a hell of a morning.
Along the same lines, what about a good mudslide?
Yeah, I guess it is technically a storm and weather event. It's the after effects. They're not as great. They're not as fun. There's a rumble to an avalanche that I don't feel like you get with mudslides.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this, Ty, and I've experienced it, probably not on the level that, I don't know if it's in Oklahoma or Texas, whoever gets it most violently. There's something about hail.
Oh yeah.
Hail does it for me. I'm not a spiritual person. I'm not a religious person. Rain is rain. Snow is snow. Hail feels biblical.
Yeah.
There is something about hail where like, oh, somebody is upset up there about something. And there is something beautifully violent about hail, as long as it's not affecting, people or property in significant ways. I react in a very visceral way to hail. And like being in a crazy hailstorm, I don't know, it kind of does it for me.
I thought of my answer. The answer isn't so much a tornado, it's a water spout.
What is a water spout?
It's a tornado over water. A close cousin of the fire spout or fire whirl, maybe it's called, which is a tornado over like...
What was it that you just sent me? That something under Chicago?
Oh, there was like a frost quake? Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So that's when the fault lines fill with water and freeze or something?
No, that's when water in the ground freezes and it causes a reaction in the ground and it makes
in the plates
a boom. Yeah.
Tectonics. Yeah. Love tectonics.
There are also some crazy like cloud formations that arise that I might like to see, but my number one answer is a water spout.
That's a good answer. I like that. Okay, I think here, let's go. There's 2 more questions, then I guess we'll talk personal stuff.
Okay.
Do you feel compelled to like, love, /retweet your significant other's social media posts?
Yes.
Ryan wants to know.
Yes.
So your wife is on Twitter.
She is, yeah.
Good tweeter. I say that. I follow her. I enjoy her tweets.
She will love to hear that. Thank you, Dan. It's very
good
kind
tweeter. My wife is not on Twitter. She posts on Instagram maybe once a year and wants nothing to do with social media. But I understand that there are pressures that come along with it. And to that I say, delete all of your social media accounts. It's not doing you any good. You can follow us on Twitter and that's it. It's rough out there, man. Social media, like I've had people say to me, did you see this picture? I've seen media people post things like, I see you out there watching my Instagram stories, but not liking my posts.
Right.
Smart, interesting, funny people get their brains warped because of likes and comments. And like, it's insane what it does to people. And you feel that?
No, I don't feel like I need that, but I feel compelled to like Solid Wife Kate's tweets. Yes.
Sure.
I feel compelled to. As for me personally, I could take it or leave it. I don't really need it.
Do you have Instagram? I don't even know if you have a personal Instagram.
I have personal Instagram. I don't use it because my pictures are terrible. I take terrible photos. I'm not good.
You also can't see color.
I can't. Yeah, no. It's just it's a bad medium for me personally to promote my brand.
Right.
I enjoy other content on Instagram very much, but
I'm looking your Instagram.
my last posting was like many moons ago.
This is a pretty good picture. November. You got some snow.
Yeah, but look at the other ones. There's nothing of any real merit on there, Dan.
You posted a picture of goldfish.
When we were in Chicago, a pumpkin pie.
Oh yeah. No, your grid is not. I haven't posted in over like a year.
I have a funny picture here of a misused comma where it says Rachel Ray finds inspiration in cooking her family and her dog.
That is good. I've seen that picture. I like the stories though, because they disappear. Like here's a little nugget, and then you can just move on with your life, and the world will never see it again.
I'm gonna get like 1,000 follows now, and everyone will be sorely
follow Ty
disappointed.
Hildenbrandt. TYHILDENBRANDT.
Got it. First try.
You locked it up. You locked up the Ty Hildenbrandt name.
Just to circle back. I do feel compelled to like.
It is weird.
Solid Wife Kate's content. Yeah, I do.
It's when people in real life say things like, did you see the picture I posted? Yeah.
I'll tell you my problem on Facebook. My problem on Facebook is I've hidden most of the people I am friends with.
It's the move.
I've hidden most of the people, and it's really come back to bite me in the butt because I've had friends who have literally had kids, other big time life events have occurred to them, and I've totally been in the dark.
I can see that, and that's fine. It's fine. Your life kept on going, didn't it?
Anyway, moving on.
Final question. I really hope this isn't real.
Okay. Oh, no. Yeah.
I suspect it might be. I would say there's a 61% chance it's real.
Yes.
That's the number I'm putting it.
Okay.
This came to us, I believe, on Reddit.
Okay.
My girlfriend of about 4.5 years now, and one of my best friends since elementary school, so those are two different people, drunkenly made out at a pool party around 2 years ago.
Whoa.
I just found out because she says it means nothing to them, and they didn't want to hurt me.
Oh, boy.
I'm really not sure how to react. I'm kind of in shock. Any thoughts, advice?
Whoa.
It might be a made up thing just to get us talking. I don't know.
Okay. But there's a chance it isn't. There's a chance that we've got a verbaler out there in need, in pain.
Correct.
I was thinking about this question from the moment it dropped on the Reddit feed.
Mm-hmm.
The part that jumps out at me that I take the most issue with is just finding out because it meant nothing and they didn't want to hurt you. If they didn't want to hurt you, they wouldn't have done it in the first place. So that part, I have real beef with that statement there. That I think above all else is what would stick in my craw the most.
Presumably this happens 2.5 years into a relationship?
2.5 years, yeah.
That's a long time.
Right? It seems like that's a long time in.
And I'd say it's different, but not necessarily too different if this is a 21-year-old doing this versus a 31-year-old doing this. Hard to know. We don't have age background.
No, nothing.
21-year-old much more likely to do something immature and hurtful than a 31-year-old, in my experience. The fact that you drunkenly do this, and I've had friends who have been cheated on, and they work it out, and they get married, and they're presumably happy, but you never really know. So it's a different situation for however anybody wants to feel. That's fine. But I can only speak for myself. It seems like it'd be hard to trust this person.
Yes.
Keeping something, because it's not just keeping something from you for 2 years, it's lying to you for 2 years. It's lying by omission. So you're lying for 2 years, and it's not like they just said, yep, I was at this random party and made out with this random dude. It's like Jody with an eye saying, yeah, a couple years ago, made out with camera guy Dave. What? Sorry, meant to tell you. Of all the people, it'd be tough for me. And you have to evaluate it for yourself, but trust is a super difficult thing to restore. And I find I would be in a place where I would be looking for somebody that potentially wouldn't lie to me for 2 years about making out with a friend.
Yeah. I'm not going to tell this gentleman what to do because we don't have the full context here.
Because if you're a loyal person.
I know.
If fidelity is something that's important to you, you should be with somebody. This is me speaking for myself, that feels the same way.
I agree with all of that. I just would feel very guilty about trying to give advice here without the full context, because life is very complicated and painted in shades of gray, not black and white. So,
and if this person is crazy important to you and you want to work it out, attempt to speak to a professional together. And try to get to the root and try to build a new foundation. That would be a direction.
My only point here, and I will stick with this, is the line about it meant nothing to them and or they didn't want to hurt me is bull. That's bull.
Well, this is also just immaturity. Yeah.
Total bull. If they didn't want to hurt you, they wouldn't have done it in the first place. It wouldn't have lied to you for 2 years. So that line, if that is in fact the excuse, is not a valid excuse in my book.
If it came out that you made out with not necessarily one of Kate's friends, but early on, you're like, oh, yep, slipped up at the Christmas party, and you've been holding it back, I think you'd be out, right?
I think I'd probably be out, yeah.
I definitely would be.
I hope I'd be out.
I definitely would be out. So,
yeah. All right.
I'm too lazy to do that.
Well, best of luck to you,
I love my
friend.
wife too much, yeah.
Best of luck to you.
All right. That's our show, except for one last thing, I guess.
Yes.
So, I guess if you follow me on Instagram, which God bless, thank you. Thanks for the follow.
Much better pictures than mine, by the way.
Yeah, I just do the story thing. So it disappears. Dan Rubenstein, just one word. I guess I got some news. Ty, you want to throw me a drum roll? Oh, buddy! That is the sound of my son crying.
Whoa!
Because we have a solid baby. When we started this show, we were not with our wives.
No.
There was no home ownership. There was no wedding planning. There was no wedding. There was no honeymoon. There was no buying of a home. And there were certainly no children. And so if you've been listening to the show for a long time, we've all come to a very far and definitely better place together. And so now this would be 2 weeks ago. My beautiful wife, Jody, and I gave birth to a very healthy son, 7 pounds, 11 ounces. And there is now an extra member of the Solid Verbal crew. And you can point to this day as when we jumped the shark. This is the day, once Dan had his kid, it just wasn't the same. I don't know. I'm going to listen to Bill Connolly and Steven or something. But yes, I have a son. He's healthy. He's amazing. It's been a great 2 weeks. We had his 2-week doctor's appointment today and 98th percentile height.
Whoa.
Like around 30 to 40th percentile weight. But strong legs. Scouting report is very positive. Elite pooper. I am over the moon, completely in love. And yeah, we have a solid baby. It's pretty incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very exciting, Dan. Congratulations.
I am the first person to have a kid.
You are the
and
first.
I will treat it as such.
You are the first.
I am the first father.
This is college football podcasting's Truman Show, is what this is now.
This is it. So yeah, we've actually gotten questions before, like, when are you guys gonna have kids so you guys can talk about what it's like to watch college football and juggle fatherhood or something like that. At least on my end, I've heard reports that Ty is very virile.
That's right. Yeah. Now I have a number of questions here. This is
I'm
my
ready
opportunity.
And I will say, I'm going to answer all of those questions. And we've talked about, we get engaged and we talk about wedding planning and stuff like that. And we check in, blah, blah, blah. I was just I wanted everything to go right. We were very fortunate that it did. Everything was very healthy along the way. I definitely understand that we are incredibly fortunate for that to be the case. And certainly thoughts are out to everybody, going through their own stuff and, always thinking of you. But just wanted to keep it low key to make sure everything went all right.
Well, it did. And congratulations.
Yes.
Have you acquired your dad strength yet, Dan?
You know what? I actually was going to the gym more. I know that's sort of endorphin and in the spur of the moment lift a car thing.
Sure.
But I've definitely been squatting more.
Okay.
I've definitely been hammering the delts and the tries for sure. So yes, I think it's on the uptick.
How many times have you been peed on?
So he is about to be 2 weeks old, 4.5, 5 times. Listen. I know people have recommendations. There are tents that you can put over and you cover with a diaper or something like that.
A medical tent, sure.
Medical tent. It doesn't matter how quick you are, or if you think your timing is right, you're quick and he doesn't pee, and then you're like, I think we're safe now. Remove the diaper, and then the fire hose begins. So this is not going to be ending anytime soon.
Will you be doing a dedication podcast like a Cat Stevens father and son thing?
Ooh.
Where you're going to put this one in the vault so that the youngin can listen when he turns of age?
That's a good question. I have a couple of friends actually who write letters to their kids once a month to just check in, just a vault, a little time thing. I don't have any audio plans at the moment, but that could change.
Okay.
What's time capsule? That's what I'm looking for.
Time capsule. Yeah. Right.
Jody with an I, absolute champ. Not going into details about the labor.
Nope. Don't.
She did such a phenomenal job. Total champ.
So for those of you wondering, why weren't we in San Francisco for the championship? Why didn't we do a live show this January? Now maybe you got some critical details to that question.
Yes. So she was due like a week after the national championship game. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to stay in New York and not miss anything important.
How about that? All right. Well,
any other questions?
I have a number of questions, but we're at about the 90-minute mark here.
All right. We'll spread it till another Q&A show. And listen, I would like to field questions from the Verballerhood now that we know about this. I'm extremely excited to talk about fatherhood after we talk about college football and shows. Sure.
I have many, many questions on this matter.
Great.
And I am excited to blitz you with them at the most inopportune moments, the way you do me with everything else.
That's great. I am excited. And I imagine a very healthy percentage of our listeners have children, or at least a child. And to them, I say, I am much dumber than all of you. So I am very excited for anybody to write in with any questions, and or if you have feedback, as it appears most parents do. If you got tips, I'm ready.
We're going to be talking about the conception. I want play-by-play. We're going to be talking about teething.
Yep.
Potty train, all of this stuff.
You're
on the hook for this now.
This is when our show got especially terrible.
Yep.
And it jumped the shark once the solid baby showed up. Now, he's great. He is fantastic. He's fun. And according to all of his grandparents, exceptional and very smart for his age.
Terrific, Dan.
Yes.
I also did ask you, and we can close out with this. It was the most Darren Ravel thing I've ever said in my life. If you had given any thought to the branding of the child, like how you would present your new son here on.
Well, he has a first name and a middle name.
Yeah,
that's about as deep the branding has gone. Actually, before he was born, my mother-in-law, who's a huge sports fan and extraordinarily thoughtful, made up a custom with our logo fonts and colors and everything. And I'll post a picture of it once he wears it. The Solid Baby onesie with a Rubenstein on the back.
Nice.
So the Solid Verbal and my wee son are going to be one and the same very soon.
The branding is complete. The Solid Baby.
Correct. The Solid Baby.
All right. Well, please join me out there in wishing my wonderful co-host the most heartfelt congratulations here on this life event. The birth of your child. Very excited for you, man. That's great.
Thank you very much. I am very tired.
All right. Well, go get some sleep.
Yes.
To all of you out there who listened to the whole thing, hope you enjoyed it. Please do write in solidverbal@gmail.com. Find us Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Also on Reddit, reddit.com/r/solidverbal. Also anywhere you could find your podcasts, you can find the Solid Verbal, be it Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, you name it. We're all over the place. We will be back in a week to talk some college football and otherwise. But in the meantime, for that guy over there, Dan Rubenstein, new father, Dan Rubenstein. For myself, Ty Hildenbrand, thanks again for tuning in. We'll catch y'all soon. In the meantime, stay solid.
Peace.